Very few people choose to stay in a hospital willingly. Most of us are brought there by ambulance. After what happened to me, I'll avoid hospitals for as long as I possibly can. I was 14 at the time, awkward, skinny, all elbows and knees. Why I ended up in the hospital doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the story. What does matter is the place itself. It was a standard pediatric ward. The walls were painted with crude murals, badly drawn fairy tale characters, rabbits, smiling animals, the kind of decorations everyone remembers from childhood hospitals. The ward corridor was long and wide, shaped like an L. If you stood facing the entrance, all the patient rooms were on the left side. On the right, the nurse's station, restrooms, a bath, and 2 procedure rooms. The ward was on the ground floor. Most rooms held 4 or 5 beds. The isolation rooms only had 2. I spent time in both. One important detail: the hospital stood right next to a forest. If you looked out the window, about 100 feet away began dense, dark woods. A fence separated the hospital from the forest, but it didn't look like much of a barrier to anyone who really wanted to cross it. I spent a little over 2 weeks there. Injections, IVs, constant medication. It was painfully boring. At first, I shared my room with 3 other patients. We talked, traded stories, I read books. Everything was normal. Then, about a week in, one patient was discharged. Another was transferred. The third was sent to surgery. And suddenly, I was alone. I didn't think much of it. Alone was fine. Every evening followed the same routine. A nurse came around with pills and a cup containing liquid antihistamine, something meant to make us drowsy. I took it for the first few days, but later someone suggested pouring it down the sink. Said it wasn't good for you. The only good thing about it was the heavy sleepiness, which, in a hospital, isn't always bad. I stopped taking it. My normal sleep returned, and that's when everything started. That night, I didn't want to go back to my room. Most of the ward had gone quiet. I sat at the nurse's station with one of the nurses, helping her solve crossword puzzles. It was calm, almost cozy. Then the calm broke. Noise came from one of the rooms, shouting, confusion. Before I understood what was happening, a patient ran up to the station. "What's going on?" the nurse asked. "Someone's knocking on the window." "Who?" "Some guy. I don't know what he wants. Some freak." "Stay calm. I'll call security." She did, then decided to check the room herself. We followed her. On the way, the patient explained. They were lying in bed, getting ready to sleep, when light tapping came from the window. At first, they joked, maybe someone's friend. One guy went to check. The moment he pulled the curtain back, he jumped away screaming. Outside stood a filthy, pale man, possibly homeless. He was pressing his face to the glass, scratching it with his hands. The patient ran for help. The nurse looked out the window. Nothing. Security searched the area around the building, found nothing. Shaken, I returned to my room and tried to sleep. A storm was building. Wind howled. Streetlights cast moving shadows of branches across the walls. Sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about the metal bars on the window in that other room, the lock that was supposed to hold them shut. Around 1:30 a.m., I noticed a shadow moving strangely on the wall. I squeezed my eyes shut, then opened them again. That wasn't a tree. It was a human silhouette. Someone was standing outside my window. Fear turned into anger. Why was I afraid of some idiot wandering the hospital grounds? I forced myself to sit up. The bed springs creaked loudly. I stood. The shadow was closer now, clearly human. I panicked and ran out of the room to find a nurse. The station was empty. I waited. Eventually, exhaustion overtook me, and I drifted off on a couch nearby. When the nurse returned, she scolded me. We checked my room. Nothing outside. She told me to stop imagining things and ordered me back to bed. Around 3 a.m., I tried to sleep facing away from the window. The room felt cold. Suddenly, I realized why. The window wasn't fully closed. Cold air poured in. I got up to shut it. As I reached the window, I felt it. That sensation between your shoulder blades when someone is watching you. I froze, breathing, right behind me. Slow, shuffling steps. I turned. Nothing. Convincing myself it was stress, I returned to bed and fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept. When I woke, the room was still dark. Something moved on the floor, crawling toward me. A pale man, dragging himself forward, hands pulling his body across the tiles. His skin was gray and mottled. His mouth hung open, producing wet, choking sounds. The smell hit me next, sweet and rotten. A dark trail followed him. He reached the middle of the room, illuminated by the streetlight. I couldn't move. Thunder crashed outside. I snapped free and jumped. As I ran, something cold brushed my arm. The door, the latch. I tore it open and fled. I locked myself in the bathroom until morning. When they finally pulled me out, my arm was covered in dried blood. Not mine. They later said a corpse had gone missing from the morgue. A man, a serial killer, identified, then gone. I don't want to know if it was him.